like, when do you see an ox eat meat? That's a really good point. So when they would like break down like little simple things like that, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. So there's another way to nutrition, and maybe what we've been told our entire life isn't maybe necessarily the correct way or the most beneficial way.
Today we have lovely and special guest, Miss Jill Stanford-Caw. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Your record is 13-3.
Yes.
That's super impressive. I'll put a little applause sound effects in there. That's awesome. 13-3. And do you have someone, that you want to go against for your first fight? Because that's going to be a big breakthrough.
I honestly, I don't.
You could call someone out right now.
I don't have anybody specific for boxing. It's kind of you take what you can get.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot out there, especially when we're talking about weight classes too. So I would even have to look at my weight class to see who's even participating.
Mm-hmm.
And I fight at 147 for professional, 154 for amateur. So even looking at who are the fighters right now. And it's funny because I've actually sparred with some of the fighters that are more on a different level of where I would be even like if I go pro, I wouldn't be fighting them right away because these are the champs. They have the belts and stuff like that. But being able to see myself working my way up to be like, oh, I was in your camp for sparring and now here we are actually fighting. So that's pretty cool.
You're quite the inspiration to future and present female athletes and male athletes, including myself. What gives you your mental edge, and what can you fall back on when facing adversity in and out of the ring?
That's a really good question. So I feel like I kind of grew up with that mental edge. Did not grow up with the best childhood, kind of had to go through a lot of different things. And that I think that really helped me develop my mental edge more of in a survival state. So being able to take that from a childhood into an adulthood area, especially in boxing, definitely let me kind of have the mental leverage, especially within the sport, of just being able to, whenever something comes up, an obstacle or roadblock, to be able to see it as something that's going to help me get better, to really help define me as a person and really push me forward. So when I see these things pop up, it's more of the obstacle is the way. So when I see that, it's like, okay, I'm going in the right direction. Of course, when you set an intention, disruption's going to follow. So these things that I'm trying to do, trying to accomplish, having that mental edge is so important, especially, I mean, not just in life, but especially in a sport like boxing, when you're literally putting your life on the line, where you have to have that mental edge. You have to have that focus. You have to have that determination, the discipline, the perseverance to keep going forward.
Is there a moment when you're in the ring and something kind of clicks and you're like, screw this?
When the bell rings, when it's time to go, when it's time to fight. When I was at the 2018 national championships and it was going into my third fight. So we fight multiple times a week in a tournament. So I had already fought one time, already fought a second time. Going into my third fight, I could not feel my body. I was pretty much in pain. I couldn't even take off my own sweatshirt. I took like 3 showers that day. Unfortunately, I had to take ibuprofen just because I had a lot of different things going on with my body, the way I felt. Even shadow boxing was painful. But going into that last fight of the tournament, because it was the finals, right when the bell rang, it was just like adrenaline kicked in. I couldn't even feel my body anymore. And I was just like in there to win, in there to fight. And I had never been so aggressive to the point where I was making sounds like as I was fighting, like, who am I? But also even getting to the point where I couldn't even feel my arms. And I almost felt like I was stepping outside of my body. And kind of could see myself fighting and see my arms moving, but I couldn't even really feel myself doing that, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely when the bell rings, that's when I feel like things really start to kind of click and turn on. I would be lying if I woke up and said, every time I manifest the bell to ring and I'm ready to go, because that's not the case. But there are days that I do wake up and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to kick butt and, do whatever I got to do. But then there's a lot of times where I wake up and I'm like, again? I gotta go do this again, but I still go. I'll still show up and I'll still put the work in, and I never regret it afterwards.
You're not a machine,
right?
You're only human.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the documentary Game Changers?
I did.
And
Yeah.
what was like some takeaways? I mean, James Wilkes
Yeah.
is in that same realm, UFC fighter or
Mhm.
retired. And I'm just curious, like, what did you think besides, the glitz and glamour of Hollywood and they made this look really good?
Mhm. It was really informative and eye-opening. One of the things that really stood out for me, I forgot who it was the big guy. I think he was the powerlifter guy.
Yeah,
Eh,
Patrick Baboumian. Baboumian.
yeah. And he was talking about like, when do you see an ox eat meat? That's a really good point. So when they would like break down like little simple things like that, it was
Mhm.
just kind of like, oh, okay. So there's another way to nutrition, and maybe what we've been told our entire life isn't maybe necessarily the correct way or the most beneficial way for all parties.
So, Jill, do you think you could ever go plant-based?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think I could do plant-based. I mean, I have done it before. So like even like right now, like when I say I eat meat, like I'm not a huge meat eater. But I do eat it every once in a while, more so because my husband likes to have it. But yeah, being completely plant-based, wouldn't have no problem with doing that at all.
That's cool. That's a big opportunity right there.
Mm-hmm.
Be the poster child.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool. I think for, the, I let's back up for a second in my thoughts. I listened to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People
Mm-hmm.
and creating win-win situations.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like that whole win-win is selfishly my health. And then for others around me, it's the environment and the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been like an eye opener. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
like
Win,
that
win,
was
win.
exactly,
Situation. Yeah.
exactly. It's the best win-win-win.
Yeah.
And it was really easy. And, I'm a smaller guy. I'm like 5'9". I was weighing like 170, 175, and I'm
Mhm.
now like 150.
Okay.
So my fighting weight could be like 145,
There you go.
walking
Yeah.
around at like 150. And like, it's like 20, 25 pounds just flew right off and
Mhm.
without even doing anything. So if you're listening and like trying to be, in the gym, losing weight, maybe shift your focus a little and change the lens you're looking at food through. And instead of like plant-based or meat eater and labeling that person and that person, just be like, all right, processed foods, throw them all out.
Mhm.
If you're listening and you have processed foods in the fridge or whatever, get rid of them
Mhm.
and clean up your diet. They say abs are in the kitchen.
Yep.
What are your like big nutrition tips for your clients and for performance?
So my focus is honestly gut health. That's a lot of what I focus on. Ingredients, learning how to read labels. That's like when I'm working with general population, that I'm more so about the education piece. Like when you go to the grocery store, what are you looking for? What are even the marketing schemes to kind of be aware of? Like if something says organic, but then when you actually look at the ingredients, there's like literally one thing on there that's organic, and they can say it's organic because that one thing. So just kind of helping people be more aware of what they're actually looking at and what they're actually consuming. And as opposed to even for my athletes that I work with, because athletes are really focused on macronutrients, fats, carbs, proteins, all that good stuff, which I think is very important. But for them to be able to teach them about micronutrients, feeding their body at a cellular level, where they're actually going to get that food from, and more specifically fighters for weight cuts, because unfortunately we do have to weigh a certain amount on a scale at the end of the day to fight. If we don't, we get disqualified, which for some people is payday. So being able to show them and teach them how to be in a nutrient surplus, but in a caloric deficit at the same time by utilizing micronutrients.
What are your go-tos? And it doesn't have to be like, kale and carrots.
There is a specific shake that I use that has all of my micronutrients. It's called the Power Shake. But that basically is equivalent to me having 6 superfood salads. So it does have like your spirulina, your kale, your millet, your wheatgrass, your alfalfa, your amaranth, your chia seeds, your millet, your buckwheat. Like there's a ton of really good stuff in it that makes it really nutrient dense. So that's usually what I start my day with. But even like foods that I'm consuming throughout the day, I do like to eat a lot of fruit. I'm huge on fruit because I used to be scared of it. I was told that fruit was bad for you when you were a kid because of how much sugar it has in it. Some of my favorites are kiwi. I love kiwis. They're probably one of my favorites. cherries, and I eat fruits that are in season. So I don't just go to the grocery store and get whatever. If I go to the organic section, typically, if it's in the organic section, that typically means it's in season. Or you can just easily look up, hey, what's in season? But I do eat like oatmeal and grains and stuff like that as well. I do eat a lot of fermented food as well. So I mean, it's always different for me. I always try to keep the day different because I don't want to get bored and do the same meal plan like, bodybuilders do and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that. Have you ever read the China study?
No.
Okay, so it's a book. It's the longest comprehensive study on nutrition ever conducted. I highly recommend. I have it.
Yeah.
So maybe I could loan it to you.
Yeah.
It talks about, how America has a lot of disease, and in China they eat this like very natural, simple diet. And do you eat meat?
I do eat like eggs. I wouldn't say I eat a lot of meat, but I do every once in a while.
And processed foods?
No.
So what's inspired you to do your one-on-one women's and men's like weight loss program?
So I work with men and women. I do work with a lot of fighters and athletes at the same time. So for me, it was going through my own transformational period. I've always been an athlete, but I've always kind of like on the chubbier side and never really knew a lot about nutrition. Didn't know anything about nutrition, if I'm going to be honest. So when I had gotten probably right out of high school, I want to say, started to really dive in a little bit more into nutrition and started to learn more about the effects on the body. I was really curious about it, like how food works with the body. So I ended up having my own transformation. I actually had lost 35 pounds, and which made me want to be able to take the information, the knowledge that I had learned, and be able to show someone else, hey, I want to be a catalyst for you to help you in your transformation. Because after going through like how much stuff I had to research and learn and trial and error, like I wanted to be able to help someone get to their goal sooner and be able to learn and to be educated on nutrition as opposed to going through another fad diet, this trend, that trend, but really just ultimately getting into a more sustainable, healthy lifestyle, which is where I really strive for.
I knew nothing about nutrition either. And I think it's sad how a lot of us know nothing. And yet we, across all races, sexes, we all eat like 2-3 times a day, no matter who you are. And we know nothing about what we're doing with that. So there's a total disconnect that frustrates me now that I'm deep into my plant-based lifestyle. When is your first professional fight? I know the listeners are dying to hear.
Sore subject. Okay, so I was supposed to go pro back in August, have my pro debut. Unfortunately, a couple weeks before, had gotten a concussion. And then as I came back to training, had unfortunately sprained my ankle. So as of right now, there is no set date, just kind of waiting for recovery to finish happening, getting back into sparring, getting back into training. And then at that point, when it feels comfortable to set a date, then we will. Probably will not be this year, though. Probably, hopefully be, I'm hoping March of 2023, though.
Okay. If you had one person to spar with, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, man. Okay. Man, I feel like I'm like going through so many people in my head right now. Honestly, I'd probably choose Katie Taylor.
Katie Taylor, like present boxer.
She's alive. Yes.
Okay. So that's pretty fathomable.
Katie Taylor
you could make that happen.
Or Tommy Hearns. I maybe would work with him.
Okay.
Mike Tyson, I think he might kill me. And then there's Muhammad Ali, but I feel like those guys are so known that I would want to choose someone who's not as out there. So I would probably say Katie Taylor, present day, and then Tommy Hearns, non-present day.
All right, I'll have to ping and slide into Katie Taylor's DMs and let her know, like, where does she live?
So she's Irish, but I think she lives in Pennsylvania, I want to say.
Perfect. That's where I'm from. We'll go back, fly there, and go to an Eagles game.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. I know she's lower weight class than me, but that's okay. We'll still put hands on. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. We did a little catching and boxing in the backyard, and that was fun. And how often do you train? What's your training schedule like?
So right now, because I'm not in camp, boxing about 4 to 5 times a week. In camp means I have a fight coming up within about 8 to 12 weeks. I train about 2 to 3 times a day. So it's and I usually try to take at least one day, full day off, but it's different types of training. So whether that be sparring, mitt work, road work, strength training, there's a bunch of different stuff we got to go through.
Yeah, sounds fun.
It's super fun. You're just, almost dead half the time, but that's okay. No social life.
It seems like you're loving that side of life.
Yeah.
Do you want to be in the Olympics?
That was my goal. Not anymore. So it was end of 2018. So I've only been boxing since I started boxing when I was 25. So that's really late for the boxing game. A lot of boxers, especially going to the Olympics, start when they're like 9 or 11. So I had a lot of experience to make up for in a short amount of time. So back in 2018, I just went to a tournament, talked with my coach, and I was just like, hey, I want to go for the Olympics. Let's try it. He kind of looked at me like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, let's do it. And I remember telling people like, hey, I'm gonna go for the Olympics. Them being like, okay, like kind of smiling at me like, sure you are. Like you just started. But then it was 3 months after I made that decision. I'm really big about, sticking to what you're going to say, making decisions about what you're going to do and following through. So it was about 3 months after I made that decision, I actually qualified at another tournament to go to the Olympic qualifiers. Went to the Olympic qualifiers, was 1 out of 8 females in my weight class to go. Like I was the least experienced. I had 13 fights when I showed up. All the other girls had over 100 fights that I was fighting. Made it to the third fight against Mary Spencer, who was a 3-time world champion, over 100 fights, and unfortunately did lose to her. So after that was just kind of like, hey, what do I want to do? Because of my age, I am 32 now. Did not want to wait for the next Olympics, just wanted to go ahead and go pro. So that was pretty much the goal from there. Just go be a professional boxer after that. So.
Okay. So getting healthy.
Yep.
And then professional.
Yep.
And then kind of play it by ear from there.
Yeah. See, there's so many doors that can be opened through, especially being a female in the boxing world. There's just not a lot of us. Mm-hmm. And being able to create a brand around that as well, and just kind of be able to lead the way and open the door for a lot of other females that are to follow. Cool.
Okay, so I got this awesome poster behind you. I don't know if you've seen that movie, Rocky. Awesome. Good.
Of course.
Okay, just making sure. What's your favorite boxing movie?
Creed.
Creed.
1, I would probably say the first one is my favorite. I know there's 2 out right now. The reason why, it does have a good story, but I like when I watch it, the choreography of the boxing is real. Mm-hmm. When I watch like Rocky,
throw Rocky away for the choreography.
It's hard to watch, yeah, because the choreography is not realistic to what boxers do. But I could tell for Creed, they really tried to make it more realistic with the hits, how people react, and the actual combinations and the strategic ways for boxing of kind of using it more as like a chess game. So they did a good way of breaking that down and showing that aspect of it. So I do appreciate that. There was another one though. I'll Bleed for This.
That was good.
Ooh, that one gave me chills. Bleed for This and Creed are probably my favorite.
How about the OG Raging Bull with Robert De Niro?
I don't think I saw that.
All right,
one.
You gotta go back to the archives.
Okay,
I haven't either. I actually have it on DVD in my classics section.
Oh my God.
I have Jaws and Rocky, so me and my dad put together a classics DVD section, and I haven't opened that drawer in
Okay, I'll
10
have to
years.
check that one. What's it called, Dan?
Raging Bull. It's one of the
Bull.
greatest boxing movies.
Okay.
It's black and white, Robert De Niro.
Okay, I'll check it out.
The reason why I'm talking about sports movies and not just boxing is I was raised on like motivational sports movies, and there's been a lull in that, like based on a true story. Remember the Titans and Rudy.
Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings. Yes, that was the lighter Disney side. You got Field of Dreams and The Natural, and I took a lot from those sports movies. You really learn a lot, and I feel like there's a huge disconnect, or the younger generation is not watching any sports movies to show them like, hey, this was hard. And like, this is what you have to do. Like, there's always a good story, and there's always a really strong work ethic in those characters. And I don't know, I eat it up. So
yeah, No, I definitely agree. I remember watching those growing up and feeling so inspired. And I remember watching one about soccer and being like, I want to be a soccer player. And I was like, wait, I'm not that good at soccer. I played soccer, but I wasn't that good at it. So it's just so interesting how you can watch something and feel like how it can make you feel like you can.
Experience that. I'm actually fasting right now.
Okay.
I'm Jewish, and it's Yom Kippur, so I
Okay.
guess it's the Day of Atonement. So last week was Rosh Hashanah, and I produced a cooking show. And this week you're catching me fasting, so I've had a cup of coffee.
Wow.
Yeah,
Never would
so
have guessed. You got energy. So,
yeah,
and you held mitts.
yeah. I mean,
So,
that's the thing. It's amazing the energy. I'm a high energy person naturally, and eating the food I'm eating. I actually haven't had a sip of alcohol either in like the last month. There's so many distractions, right? I mean, like could be a distraction for you. So I want to make sure we get the most out of this opportunity and pump you up. Like you're killing it. Like I was looking at stuff on your page and I'm like, damn, like your weight loss and then your mindset and your spirituality, the whole mind body, you're really crushing and you're like radiating that energy and it's very obvious even though we just met.
thank
So
you. I would
keep
never
going.
know that. So I appreciate you saying that because, we put stuff out there and it's just kind of like, oh, hope this impacts somebody. So to hear someone like feedback about it is good to be like, okay, that kind of like, okay, keep doing that. Like keep showing up like that. So it's good to hear that feedback.
Yeah, well, you're 13-3 as an amateur boxer. That's pretty impressive to start with. You're not 3-13. I don't know if I don't know if you make the show if you're 3 and
Yeah, I
13.
know. It's stop right out.
So I knew you'd have a good record. That's why you're here. It's like you're you're just kind of leveling up, and you got to keep leading and hope that those closest around you are like, hey, like do this. Like my parents went plant based like a month after me, and something that was so revolutionary to me like I led my parents to, where my whole life my parents led me to something. So I think that's kind of crazy. I've been asking this to all my guests.
Okay.
All right. Key to life.
Key to life?
Yeah, I've had such a wide range of answers, and for me, like the discipline of waking up, making the bed, starting the day on the right page.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, that's the key.
Yeah, yeah, keeping it simple. I guess to me, I'm thinking like there's so many like what is the avenue to go, but I guess like what you just said, breaking it down is just waking up every day, showing up for yourself, and to keep going and progressing, and not to focus on perfection, but just what can you do to be 1% better that day, and to who can you support that day. And to me, it really is about serving others. When we talk about leadership, like leadership is not about how many people can serve you, but how many people you can serve. So I think that is something that I really take to heart when I think about even the key to life, which is so crazy to even think about when we say the key to life, but how many people can you really help out on a daily basis with still keeping your cup full at the same time. And I think that really is the measure of greatness.
Awesome, awesome. Jill Stanford-Caw, thank you so much for joining the show. It's been a pleasure having you on a plant-based production podcast. If you can give a little wave to the cameras. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.